Thanks for coming on Art World, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and appreciate everyone for tuning in today. And looking forward to a great conversation.
So, we are going to get into the future of crypto. But first, let's start by zooming out a little bit and getting a bird's eye view of where you're coming from. Because you worked in the music field for a long time as a music engineer for Jermaine Dupri before switching over to the tech side. And now you've been at Andreessen Horowitz for over a decade. And you have a thesis about how the tech world and the cultural sphere should work together. And can you start by talking a little bit about this thesis?
Yeah. So once again, appreciate everybody for taking the time today. I'm Chris Lyons, I'm President of Web3 Media here at Andreessen Horowitz. Um, and yeah, no, I would say, like, if you really think about just innovation and I'm back here in the Bay Area right now, but grew up right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And I've always seen the world from two different lenses. One is, I kind of call it the intersection of culture and innovation. And as a music engineer, I was always on the computer, and you just kind of saw that a lot of the world was going from using this analog hardware to software and digital, but then really being able to see how, being at the forefront of all these different industries, that technology was always going to be the central point. But even here today, when you see now, we kind of say Silicon Valley has been uploaded into the cloud. So not, which means that it doesn't necessarily have to come from San Francisco, but at the time, and still to this day, the majority of the most interesting tech companies have originated here in the Bay Area. But that's where companies kind of start. That's where the teams really come together. But you don't really get that validation or really seeing it go mainstream until you actually understand how to actually work with consumer culture and working with people outside of Silicon Valley. And for me, just being a music engineer, yeah, having my whole career kind of being centered around a specific world, but understanding how technology really works. I always kind of consider myself an outsider, but I think that that's also one of the key strengths is because, if you're always in your space, if you're always in this environment, if you're always in the thing that then you'll never be able to think about other people. But, for in order for technology to scale, you're gonna have to need um, people from outside of Silicon Valley in order to take off. And so I always just thought that with me being the only brother in the room, just by default, like I just saw things differently. But then saying, okay, well, rather than just using traditional go-to-market strategies to help scale companies, what if you could actually implement quote unquote culture or people that are the most influential people outside of Silicon Valley to work with these companies. I call it shared genius. A shared genius where you have someone like a Serena Williams or Kevin Durant or a Nas, working directly with the founders of these most influential companies. And at the very earliest stages, they're understanding, how would Kevin Hart use an app that everybody's going to use, because if he's using it, then, or if he's thinking about how the actual user interface is going to work, then, and you're getting a chance to hear, and you're thinking about people from their traditional businesses, but everyone, even on this call, like, has a level of entrepreneurship about them and how they're seeing the world. And I think that when we build in silos, we really have we are creating something that we're hoping works. And even within venture, like, when we're looking at an idea, it's like, okay, well, I hope that this is going to be something that people want, as opposed to actually having that opportunity, to disconnect from the ecosystems that we know, and then apply them to, okay, well, how would somebody in Atlanta really use this product, or like, and why, or like, and that's just where I'm from. But like, how do you actually take the culture and take the insights that are coming from every everyday people? I started off actually, when I was in high school serving tables, and I thought I always view the world from a quote unquote like a restaurant. So like, can a product really
Hmm.
be used by every single person in this restaurant? Because you're having all different walks of people, walks of life. Like, so you might be old, you might be young, you might be black, you might be wherever, but it's such a wide range of people. And how can you actually make sure that your product and what you're selling is applicable for every single person in that restaurant? And, to me, that's how I think about all forms of technology, but even more specifically, just given this conversation, that's how I think about crypto, and why, I'm so passionate about, one, making sure that the onboarding experience and the understanding of blockchain technologies is applicable for the entire world. And two, make it simple enough so that anyone in a restaurant or anyone that's outside of Silicon Valley or these traditional technical industries will have the opportunity to understand the value and also use it at the same time. And so that's a very condensed version of, how I believe culture and innovation works together. But I think that we're at an amazing point right now where we can we're experiencing a digital renaissance with AI and crypto and all these new technologies being at the forefront that anyone can be able to use right now. But it's extremely important that we can have the end user in mind in terms of how we can actually use these products so that you can actually get the benefits. Because even today, I've been in crypto for, I mean, we did the led the Coinbase Series B deal in 2014, 2015, and from there just have been, pushing the opportunity for why blockchain technology is exciting, but it's still extremely difficult. I mean, trying to teach my friends how to use a MetaMask wallet, or to buy a ledger, and what is a seed phrase, what is all these tech, what is gas fees, all these things are things that we've had to just kind of evolve with. But also, if you think about just, the internet and when it was first created, like, nobody was, you know, people were still trying to understand what a browser was, and and same thing with mobile apps and all these things. And it's just a really exciting time because all of us on this call are watching the next, breakthrough technology happening in real time, and seeing all the trends and all the experiments happen. And now we're all on the internet, but like when the internet was being built, it was, it was, everybody was speculative, everybody was trying to understand what was going on. And so it's just a really fascinating time. And I think that anyone, as long as you have one peak of interest, that's the first start towards going down the rabbit hole.
I think that's like a perfect segue into NFTs because it seems to me that this perennial story of Silicon Valley and of tech innovation generally is that new tools are created with an idea of how people are going to use them. But then when people actually start using them, you see all these new emergent behaviors becoming visible and new ways of using these tools that maybe the inventors wouldn't necessarily have thought about. And I
Hmm.
think about, Satoshi Nakamoto inventing Bitcoin as a way of decentralizing finance. But then you
Hmm.
get Kevin McCoy coming along a couple of years later, and he's, he was the first guest on this whole Art World Conversation series.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, so this blockchain technology has the
Hmm.
capacity of solving some ecosystem problem that we've had in the art world, which is that digital tools or digital artworks can't be endowed with unique value. And
Hmm.
so he kind of like hacked it for his own purposes and created this NFT, which we now know, kind of went viral during the pandemic, as
Yep.
like, in part as like this novel, solution to an art market problem, and also in part as a kind of a way of allowing crypto holders to diversify their assets into something else that
Hmm.
was equally interesting and speculatable from a financial
Hmm.
standpoint. But so, what were you thinking when you saw this NFT boom unfold? And what kinds of how did A16Z kind of look at this from a strategic venture perspective and what kind of moves were being made?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of dynamics there. I think the first thing I was interested in I figured out NFTs not well, originally was Dapper Labs. I minted one of the crypto kitties, which if you're OG crypto person, you have a crypto kitty. And I remember just talking about it with the Dapper team and just breeding kittens online and creating this whole ecosystem. And I thought this was 2017. I thought that like this is the craziest thing in the world. Then also this random thing in 2017 I heard about called crypto punks, but at the time did not care anything about that because I had a crypto kitty. Bad idea. But still, it was just a fascinating thing. And then kind of like it just kind of went underground, and I was working with Dapper for a long time trying to figure this out. And it took 2 years for us to do this NBA partnership for NBA Top Shot. And once we ended up, a16z helped with Dapper and the NBA to kind of put that deal together. A lot of my colleagues on the team, spent almost like over a year and a half really getting that entire ecosystem put together. But it was that it took off because it was a couple things. People understood trading cards and people understood the idea of collecting a moment. And you collect moments through physical trading cards. And now it was very easy to be able to understand that we live in a digital world. Dapper, they made it super easy in order to purchase with a credit card. And this idea of the quote unquote NFT really took off, like on the mainstream level. Um, which was extremely exciting. It was something that people could relate to. But I think that people took it and they ran with the wrong component. The idea around how do you understand exactly what it is, um, they took it too literal, like in terms of the idea of NFT. And I'll take a step back and go into like how I think about just even in the music industry. Like when I was when we started getting into the whole MP3 era, like as a musician, as an engineer, there's a difference between a WAV file, an AIFF, and an MP3, right? And so I would always tell my musicians, like, hey, I'm gonna master your song, send me the WAV file. And they would always send me the MP3. They didn't know the difference between the MP3 and the WAV file. And for me, and it's a higher quality version if I'm going to master the song. And I always would just tell them, and then I got to a point where you don't even care. So whatever, I'm just going to master your MP3. And it made me really like, and it wasn't just trying to do this services that people don't care about the technology. And you fast forward into today, like I never went to an MP3 conference, right? But like we have NFT conferences, everyone uses this technical term, but we listen to MP3s in small big files on Spotify and Apple Music day and day, but no one thinks about it as that. And so the challenge that I think that we ended up putting ourselves in a hole in, um, through the NFT era, which was fascinating and enlightened so many people about the technology, is that they focused on the technology as opposed to the application and the benefit that it had. And now we're in the state where everyone just considers crypto NFTs as opposed to NFTs and what they actually can deliver from a value standpoint. Being able to have royalties that if you're a creative, and having a community and being able to have a wallet that can instantly you can be dropped rewards because you interacted with a certain product or a certain quote unquote NFT beforehand, and being able to have all this on chain is a breakthrough technology. Even the idea around from CryptoPunks to I'm on the board of Yuga Labs, which is the Board Ape Yacht Club, and they also did a great job revolutionizing and from the PFP and allowing people to understand the difference between a JPEG and screenshotting and having this whole viral moment. But then now it's like, okay, we understand that it's not just a financial buying and selling and trying to flip NFTs, but like the actual technology and the benefit that it really has to offer. And so, that 2020 to even today era was amazing and needed. But now, I think I'm extremely excited because we're going to enter this new stage where hopefully it turns into the MP3 where no one really cares about the actual term, and no one cares about the actual infrastructure, and you're building everything will start to be NFTs without you realizing it. Me and my colleague Anna, we always talk about this term called hiding the wires, and it's the number one thing I talk to my founders about, and I preach about in the industry is that you know the best technology and the best entrepreneurs that are building crypto on crypto rails are making it so that you don't even know that you're using blockchain, and you don't even realize that you're interacting with a layer one or a layer two. Like most people don't know even what that even means, nor do they need to care. Like they don't care what protocol you're using. When people send an email, they don't you don't realize you're interacting with a protocol, but email and like SMTP, like that's a protocol. And technically, if you want to get super technical, like we're all interacting with protocols when you're sending emails and doing this, but you don't think about it. You just open up your browser and you just go type in an email and you send it, right? And so it's the exact same thing with what's happening in this 3.0 era where founders we can go past the idea of just talking about the tech and focus on the application. And we'll get into where I think that we've finally entered into that next stage, but hiding the wires is going to be the only way that we're going to make this work, and we're all going to be able to get the benefits. I tell my founders the second you say this is Web3 and crypto, you automatically lose 90% market share from interest because there are people who've had bad experiences with it. With blockchain, you have people that don't know how to use it, and so automatically will be turned off. And and you don't get any benefit from saying that, hey, this is crypto, but you do get benefit by using crypto and having that asset really go on chain. And I think that if there was one wake up call that for the entire world, and specifically within the United States, it's what just happened with TikTok, when everybody really finally realized that holy shit. Sorry, we're all. I, I like to cuss sometimes.
It's an
It was
adult
literally
podcast.
a holy shit moment, like people really thought, holy shit, like I'm gonna lose my TikTok. And why are you gonna lose your TikTok? Because you don't own your followers. You built an entire business, an entire entity on a platform that you don't own. And I don't think that people realize, okay, well, I need a blockchain alternative, but I do think that this will be the last major social network that gets built without having the ownership layer embedded into the system.
Hmm.
And I think that this is where we're heading. And in order to have this level of interaction and this many people that are going to be building on the technology, it's impossible to have everyone download a MetaMask wallet first. And I think that we're from companies that we're investing in, like Blackbird technology, that's like hiding the wires. Even Yuga they're working on some great projects that are hiding the wires. Even Gary V, we're invested in V Friends and how he's thinking about engaging his community, hiding the wires, and giving value to everyone and allowing them to have the ownership layer and interact on this on a day-to-day basis, but not necessarily having to think about crypto, is actually the greatest opportunity.
That's amazing because I think about like the opportunities of crypto that are outlined in Chris Dixon's great Read Write Own book as being the pathway to a survival of the friendliest kind of internet. But let's get into that. Before we get into that, when I listened to what you were just saying, I hear there's a kind of almost like a little bit of a tough love message in there for the NFT community. and you were talking about like, there weren't MP3 conferences there, but there were a lot of NFT conferences. There was a kind of a feeling
I love the
that,
NFT conferences. I mean,
and
I
so
love,
I,
I
and
think that they're great. I participated, I spoke on them, but even when I went and spoke on them, I still was saying the same message, because we have to talk to our community. We have to talk to the people that are building the products, because you have builders and you have, creators and you have consumers and you have whatever, but like it's up to the builders that are creating these tools, which is where most of these dev communities go to actually realize that if we just keep on talking in this same circle, everyone is just gonna leave and go play in other sandboxes.
I mean, I'm very curious to hear what you think about my reading of the situation, but it seems to me that a lot of the NFT kind of, especially in the art adjacent and art world proper kinds of expressions of this NFT movement, they were seeing it as a way of creating a stable, ongoing marketplace for digital art that could have, speculation that in this like frothy market that would have a constantly, upward, up and to the right trending kind of financial picture. And now we're seeing that bet is starting to not pay out for some of the like the early pioneers in the space, like Maker's Place, the NFT marketplace just shut down. Places like Feral File are pulling back significantly. Um, and there's some gloom around Ethereum because its market cap isn't growing as fast as maybe Solana or something like that. But what's kind of funny is that this focus on the financialized speculator kind of friendly liquidish asset seems to have come back to bite the NFT community in a way because meme coins have emerged as this leaner, meaner, like, like the more liquid, like the T1000 of crypto that just don't
Mhm.
require as much art knowledge or the kind of the thinky stuff
Mhm.
that NFTs require, and they've seemed to have stolen the thunder from a speculator standpoint of NFTs. So NFTs are like a little bit in their wandering the desert moment. Would you say that that's accurate?
I think, I definitely think that I wouldn't call it a wandering moment. I would say that people, it's you can't use the same trick over and over and over and over and over again. And I think that like even for we have this program that I helped launch called Voices on Chain, where we are showcasing how artists are leveraging our artists and all creatives are leveraging blockchain technology to and basically to fully create, right? And it's not necessarily focusing specifically on NFTs, but leveraging the actual medium and in order to actually get ahead of the curve on their actual businesses. And so like we just featured Nina Chanel Abney. I used to work with I worked really closely with Derek Adams when he did his NFT for Jay-Z for his 25th anniversary of the Reasonable Doubt, um, of what was going on there. But I think that, the whole point of creating on chain is to bring people into a new medium and to leverage a new medium the same way as, and it's not a bad thing. Like people thought that once streaming came out that it was going to kill the entire music industry, right? But all it did was actually enable more people to listen to music. Same thing, like, and this goes across AI, goes across all these mediums. Like people thought that when the drum machine came out, that all drummers were going to lose their jobs, and there was a complete like meltdown that, oh my God, like I'm never going to like the drum machine's going to kill us. Come to find out, all it did was increase the variability for more people to actually get into music. And so when I think that in this stage now, if you do just think about it from a speculation standpoint on the NFT side, like you're going to only be able to play with people that also think about things from a speculation standpoint, which then drives the cost down and then makes a zero-sum game, as opposed to looking at new mediums and new things that are happening. Now, look, enter meme coins. Like, is it a crazy world that we live in? Absolutely.
Mm.
Is it also like introducing new people into the space? I think it's also very much an onboarding process, which is a gift and a curse. I'll get into some of the coins in general, but like regardless of what how we think about it, like even the most recent thing that happened with the Trump coin, like 50% of all Trump and millennia coin holders had never even bought a Solana altcoin before. And 40% of the people of the people that bought created their wallets for the first time that they ever purchased the tokens. And I think it's a stat like 83% of the holders had less than $1,000 in Solana assets. So, like, regardless of even meme coins are its own world and its own conversation, but it this is still onboarding people into understanding how to buy a token, how to buy, how to go from a layer one like a Solana to buying a meme coin, and there will be a world where there's going to be functional value associated to some of these things. And because it's creating its own market caps and its own value. But if you think about like social tokens, like I personally think that they're super interesting. Where, like, imagine if you have an artist that you love, and not just buying their music, but like I'm gonna buy Frank Ocean coin because I heard Frank Ocean before anybody else when he first came out, and it was a penny. But now you're actually supporting the artist, right? And then that person is getting things associated with it, and now Frank Ocean coin is worth $150 because he's one of the world's
Mm.
best songwriters and producers. And now Frank Ocean doesn't have to worry about signing a 360 label deal with the artist, and can really focus on having complete ownership and knowing exactly who his community is, and then being able to drop tickets to people that only have 1,000 Frank Ocean coins, right? Like there's still going to be some legal and regulatory situations that are going to work into that, which is I think that we're finally starting to see people open up to the idea of what does this look like in a world, as opposed to just saying bad, this is illegal, and you know old SEC guys that names we do not want to say are no longer there. So it creates a brave new world. um and but I think that it all leads down to a new world where ownership is at the hands of
Mm.
anyone that wants to create. And I think that that's the most exciting part, on our end, and for me personally, to be able to put the power back in your hands. Like, we're a good friend of mine, Steve Stout. We're investors in this company, United Masters, where they're focusing on independence. And I think that the internet was meant to be independent, for whether it's for creatives, for its musicians,
Mm.
whether it's for artists. When I talked to Nina and Derek, when we worked on their NFT projects, the thing that was most interesting was the fact that, like, you don't even know who is buying your art. Like someone could you could and then as you can continue to ascend in your career, like, you don't be able to participate in any of the upside. Basquiat is a perfect example where none of his pieces went over, like, I think it was over $25,000 until he passed away, right?
Mm.
And so if the modern Basquiat had access to blockchain and had a 10% royalty fee across all of his pieces, the amount of it of in his wallet that he would just have just from resales, would be astronomical. On top of that, you also have the ability to know who all your users are. So now, I mean, all your fans and all your collectors. So now, if I'm doing an exhibit at the MoMA, if you anyone that actually, I could literally go and show my phone and say, "Hey, I have a Nina Chanel or I have a Derek Adams piece. and you being able to go in and go see the exhibit because you're not just a buyer, you're not just a fan, you're an owner. And I think the it's a mentality that I've always had. I mean, I just like I was the kid that would walk into Starbucks and act like I was an owner of Starbucks because I had like 3 shares of Starbucks, but then like feel like entitled to getting a free refill on a coffee because I'm an owner. But like whether it's super small like that, or really, having the whole dynamics, like blockchain is really the core foundation for this next chapter. And I think it's extremely exciting that people are understanding it, and now the use cases are becoming more and more apparent because we realize that the old system was literally just holding us back.
Okay, so there are a lot of interesting threads in there. And I mean, one, I think when you mentioned the Trump coin and regulation, I think there's something kind of profound um, that is underway. Where when Trump launched his meme on the verge of the inauguration day, um, and it grew to above $7 billion market cap. Instantaneously, with a lot of these new buyers coming in, as you described. Some people would say, this is exactly the kind of trap for unsophisticated investors that regulation was devised to protect against. But now we're seeing this pretty wholesale push against regulation that is really it's very effective. I mean, you've got David Sachs who's pushing deregulation both in terms of crypto, but also in terms of AI. You've got the Fed chair just announced today that he was kind of like, saying that the Fed has a stance against debanking for crypto companies, that there should be, fair and equal access to capital. And it kind of makes me think that crypto at its foundational, essence is a libertarian um, concept about the idea of being free from banks, free from having to deal with these third party um, intermediaries. And it's like if you go out into you live off the grid, you live in the wilderness, you have freedom to do whatever you want. But if you get bitten
Mhm.
by a snake, maybe you don't have as great access to like healthcare. Like it's like the
Mhm.
trade-off. So how do you see this moment in the crypto universe writ large as as maybe changing the game and maybe unlocking some potential things and maybe opening some potential pitfalls um, for the losers of the dynamic.
Well, that's a great question. I think that you know, it's always been like this in terms of investing, which is why, everyone is an investor, or everyone can be an investor. Should everyone be an investor? It's a whole different situation. Same way as like, you know, I like, even if you look at the stock market, right? Like it's we have to look at behavior and emotional behavior around this. Like the easiest investment advice is buy low, sell high. But and every you can ask any single person in the world, right? Like you want what's the easiest way to make money? You buy low, you sell high. What do people do? They buy high and then they sell low, right? And it's not, why is that? It's because it has, I mean, regulation is one statement and one thing to do with it, but a lot of it really has to do with emotions and behavior and logic, and how we as humans really just process FOMO. And that can apply to all different things. I mean, art, since we're talking about art, I think art is equally an amazing example. And I have gone through this journey I've been collecting for about 5 years now. And when people will sell you and tell you try to buy an art piece at the very beginning. You didn't really know that much. And you might buy a piece because everyone said this was the coolest piece to buy. And so you bought it. But like nobody's telling you that you have to buy it. You still, it's still your choice, but there's a lot of emotions that are associated with these purchases. But as you go over time, you start to refine, okay, well, instead of me just buying any artist, I'm going to think about uh like what museums that are they in, or like I don't want to buy prints anymore, I only want to buy originals. And then I go from figurative art to now like I realize I don't want to walk in my house and see 30 pictures of people I don't know. So now I'm going to go from figurative to abstract, and then now I'm going to start refining your thesis. But and then you look back at that first art piece and then you say, well, I've come a long way, but not, you didn't start there. And I think that like it's the exact same thing when we're thinking about crypto and we're thinking about all these experiences. Like nobody gets it right the first time. No one just comes in and just bats 1,000 and is a genius when it comes to whether it's buying tokens or buying meme coins or whatever. But like as once you get in the game, and I always encourage people just to like, put $50 in the best way to learn about crypto is you have to be in it. Like, because once you're in it, then all of a sudden you're starting looking at the price and oh, the price just went up 10%. I wonder why. Now you're looking at, okay, well, this impacted this, then that impacted this. Okay, now I might put a little bit more in, or maybe because I learned this information, I'm going to go now, invest into an altcoin because now I know what the benefits are, they are, what they are. And so all of this is we're all playing in this new brave new world together, and it's gonna take time, and as in even within investing, here at Andreessen Horowitz, like we don't get it right every single time, but that's like there's this theory, we call it the Babe Ruth effect, right? And what that means is that Babe Ruth had the highest number of strikeouts of all time, but he also had the highest number of home runs. And so you have to swing for the fences when you're dealing with this industry, and you focus on the wins. You will have losses along the way, but like that's just, I mean, that's what life is. Like I wish we were all did everything right every single point of the time, but we're all learning along the way. And I think it really goes down to the most important point, which is that this is a brand new technology and it's a brand new infrastructure and it's a brand new medium, and the rules will be created over time. But we're all learning along the way.
So you
That
were talking about great investment advice being um, buy low and sell high, which is a little bit like Beeple was talking about this on the show last week about how some of the most interesting art is the stuff that doesn't reveal itself to be art quite at that moment. That seems like it's disreputable, that it's outside the bounds of art, but it hasn't been taken into the consensus yet. And there's,
Mhm.
Chris Nixon has this great quote where he says that like the future always starts out looking like a toy. And I think these are all kind of the
Yeah,
same.
absolutely. You have to
And
squint.
so speaking of squinting, what do you think when you're looking at agentic meme coins? And are there any agentic NFTs that you're seeing being created? And is this that thing? Is that like that next frontier that's going to become something important?
Yeah. Look, a meme coin is a meme, and they call it a meme coin for a reason. So like it's just like go like if you're going to Las Vegas, like and you see a slot machine, don't think that it is a poker or a blackjack, or think that it's you're gonna get educational advice from a slot machine. It's literally exactly what it is. And, unfortunately, there is no value to it, but that they're literally telling you there's no value to this. And so you can choose to play the game if you want to, but like, you know, people, it's about attention. And I think that like all it's an experiment around understanding what attention is and how to monetize attention. And the same way as like when you are searching for a funny GIF or a meme that you share to your friends, and everyone knows exactly what you mean when you send, the dog eyes, looking at you funny, or like, the swaggy P guy where he's just looking at you like, are you sure you know what you're talking about? Like those are memes too, right? But now it's all the reason you can share that with your friends is because it's gotten the attention and it's gone viral and you know exactly what it is. And so it's real. This is just an experiment, but I do think that there is a difference between, thinking that this is actually, if you go into Vegas thinking that your whole life is going to change if you hit lucky sevens, like that's a emotional conversation that you're going to have with yourself. However, if you understand that, I'm in the city of Las Vegas, and there's a lot of amazing opportunities and experiences here, and you can have a great time, and you can also, raise a family in Las Vegas, and you can also go broke in Las Vegas. Like it's the world that you live in. So I think you just have to really and a lot of this comes around education, but unfortunately, the world moves so fast that a lot of times people are gonna figure this out. You have to do your own research in terms of the space. But I personally believe that it's one step in the process, and I'm if crypto ends on meme coins, and this is the farthest the innovation goes, that's then we've done ourselves a disservice in the industry.
I think that's a great transition because I kind of think that the financial side of things is can be a distraction. I mean, it's very interesting and exciting, but it can be a distraction. And I think, one of the principles that, as far as I understand it, is really undergirding what you guys are doing at A16Z Crypto is this idea that blockchain presents this historic opportunity to almost rebuild the internet in a way that expresses the foundational principles of the internet to make the an internet that isn't ruled by these extractive massive companies like the Facebooks of the world and the TikToks of the world that have walled gardens around their data, but that you can create like wholly owned communities. And I wonder, can you talk a little bit about how you see this coming down from like um, the vision plateau or the vision like cloud area, um, and coming down into something that actually has practical application in a way that you could see being transformative for the
Mhm.
art community, for the creative community, um, that goes beyond the NFT thing.
Well, I mean, I think that there's so many ways. I think that from tickets, I think that from, like a digital certificate that goes when you're purchasing an art from a primary gallery. I think that then now is associated to your digital version. I mean, a great example is like that we tested this out was when we did the Jay-Z Reasonable Doubt NFT with Derek Adams. I'll post it in the chat so people can see it. But like the experiment was we can commemorate this by doing a one of one NFT that is a digital version that the highest bidder will be able to get to commemorate the 25th anniversary. We're gonna recreate it with an artist that Jay really respects, which was Derek Adams, who's also very curious about the NFT space, and then also create a physical version of that NFT as well. And I think that just having that lineage of digital to physical, and having in the not everything has to be digital. You still have physical opportunities that are associated with it, but being able to have interoperability between the two worlds, I think, is going to be super interesting. It is important to know that you know, biology, he said this a long time ago, and it really stuck with me, is that, technically we're on our phones and on our laptops more than 50% of the time, which means that in a waking day, which means that we probably live more in a digital world than a physical world, right? And so the only way for someone to really see my art right now is to come to my house or if I post it on Instagram. But anyone can go look at my NFT collection on my wallet. And so being able to really kind of have those type of experiences to then to allow people to see new creators, to then market map and say, okay, well, Chris has collects these five artists, and he's apparently, may or may not be a good artist or a big good curator, or I want to purchase new art. Where should I go? I want to have conversations like this where not just are we having fireside chats, but let's break down and say and talk about, okay, well, let's really buy some art. Who should we be buying? Who do we think is going to be great? And you bring on a curator, but the only way to get in is having token gated experiences. Now, I say all that to then hopefully make it so that we don't need to even use the words token gated experience because not everybody even knows what that means. So, but it's the idea and the behavior of all of the benefits that blockchain has to offer and doing it in a way that is seamless, intuitive, and enjoyable from an experience standpoint. Um, the last analogy that we really talk about that I think is amazing is like GPS technology. I think it's the one technology outside of I hope crypto can be like the new GPS, where GPS it took, 30 plus years in order to make its extremely technical solution. It's actually a technology that people can build on top of. But now, when you're lost, or when you're calling an Uber, or where you're looking for an Airbnb, or so many other, like you're trying to have a hotel tonight or whatever, you're using GPS technology. Do you think about it when you're calling a car that, I'm tapping into GPS technology? No, you're just trying to figure out how do I get from point A to B. But you're using a whole infrastructure layer. And I think that with the next chapter, what I'll continue to preach as long as I can until we really start to see this happening, is that when people start building on top of layer ones and layer twos, and all and using tokens and using NFTs and all of these buzzwords that make me low key cringe, not because they're bad things, but just because it's just we're feeding the beast. That's when we'll really start to see the technological advantages. And but it requires the builders to be extremely thoughtful. And it's like when you go to a restaurant and you see an amazing food, you might think about where this came from, but you don't see what's going on in the kitchen. And we want to be able to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs that have this same mindset. And I'm very bullish that it's going to happen. But if we don't, hold people accountable across all aspects, then we're always going to be having these conversations about what is this, when is this going to happen, it's you know the last thing I say is that we've gone through so many layers of innovation, and do we really think that this is as good as it gets? And I think that my answer to that is no, which is why we keep trying to understand where the future of the world is going to go, and how blockchain and AI and all these next generation technologies will help empower us to make us even more valuable, to give us more time, to give us more ownership, to allow us to, live a free life without having to be constrained to, uh, these old systems that, quite frankly, are outdated and don't give us what we need.
Okay, so I'm going to try to squeeze in two big questions before going over to the audience. And one of them I think you'll enjoy, which is, you're this a major foodie. you're on
Mhm.
the board of the James Beard Foundation, which must be one of the most enjoyable boards to
Mhm.
be on.
It's a cool
Um,
one.
and your a16z crypto has invested in this company called Blackbird that I know is really widely watched in the crypto community as a very interesting kind of platform. Can you talk a little bit about what Blackbird is and what kind of lessons it might offer for the art ecosystem?
Yeah, well, Blackbird is actually the founder was previously the founder of Resi, and so by then taking that information from just the traditional, which is an amazing app. I use it all the time. But there's a misconception around just the food industry that you can just have points in these individual things and not necessarily know who the person is behind the reservation, and then getting the value and getting in the restaurant industry, the most important thing is treating each person with individual, care and allowing to have a personal experience. Is why you can go to any restaurant in the world, but you choose to go to one specific one because of that, because of the relationship that they've been able to build. And you know, Ben Rosenthal, he understood this exact meaning, this reasoning, and why and how blockchain experiences were going to be great. Like I'll give you one example, which I think is going to be super compelling. It's like, I lived in San Francisco for 7.5 years. Um, and I developed so much social equity with some of these restaurants and being able to just walk in and even on a busy table or whatever, right? And so, but now I leave, but I have all this value that is stored somewhere. We don't know what it is, but imagine if I could just say, okay, well, this value that I have in the restaurant, I can now put it up for sale or put it up on a marketplace that now somebody can now take that value and then now come back in and then be like, okay, well, I now have the same, uh, I could come in and automatically, because I keep coming to this restaurant and I've checked in at this many times and they know how loyal I am, and now I want to have the same experience when I first come in, when I moved to New York, and I could have, the second I walk in, like I'm greeted
Hmm.
with my favorite glass of champagne, or I automatically get a free appetizer. I automatically have these things because they know exactly who I am. In the restaurant, the servers and the hostess, they might not always be there, but the restaurant, as assuming that they do well, will always be there. And you want to be able to know who those VIP people are. I'm good friends with um, Jeff Selaznick, who's the one of the co-founders of Major Food Group, and they have a program that they instill within their team that they know who the VVVIPs are. They know who the people are that come in and they treat them with that level. But that's it's something that they instill from a company standpoint. But imagine if you had a platform and a reservation system that now knew all of your people that were coming in and delivering that first in class experience everywhere you go. I think it creates for a much more meaningful experience in the restaurant space, and then also it opens up the door for many more opportunities, just given that's something that everyday consumers use on a daily basis.
Okay. I mean, I can see all kinds of ways that this can yield opportunities for the art ecosystem, but I'm not going to talk about them because that's secretly what we're trying to do over here at Art World behind the scenes. So I'll kind of leave
You do
that
have
up.
a fun master plan.
Exactly. There's a little bit of a master plan. Um, but okay, so you're talking about knowing people's identities and that you're able to give them a certain kind of special treatment. And I think that leads to like my last question about, how blockchain and AI are going to start to meld together. And I think of them like I was talking to Sam Spratt, the great crypto artist who was on the show last season, and he was like, I was asking him, what do you think about AI and blockchain? How do they relate? And he said that, they're both born from the GPU and that as a result they have this kind of spiritual kinship, like like two, um like Roman demigods born from the same like
Exactly.
goddess or something. And the funny thing is like, they're like opposites. They're like yin and yang, where AI is like this infinity machine that can create constant variation, constant novelty, constant innovation. But blockchain has this ability to actually give things a uniqueness and a kind of a stable identity that is provable and immutable, at least until quantum computing comes along. But for the, for all intents and purposes, immutable, identity that's on the blockchain. So, I
Yep.
mean, Chris Dixon was just recently talking about proof of humanity as being a potential use case of the blockchain um, in this AI realm that we're going into. Like,
Hmm.
what do you see as being like this peanut butter and jelly of AI and blockchain? And how do you think it could have some impact on the creative world?
Well, I think that you have to have. I love both, by the way. I love AI. It's my yeah. I can't. Once you use it, you can't live without it. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's amazing. I think it turns everyone into a superhuman, in so many ways. Like a great example. So I help co-lead this investment called Udio. And so it's like a music generation, generative AI music, and it's an amazing platform and for anybody to be able to create a song. But imagine if you created this thing and you put it on the internet, and then someone else takes your example and then they create it as, and then they rip and put your sample on there as well too. Now, even though you use the AI, there's no, proof of work that showcase that where it came from, right? And so by leveraging and working with AI and blockchain and having when you are, rendering or composing a new song or a new book or an idea, that you have the actual code that's embedded onto the chain that lets them know that it originally came from you, is a great example. And we're also investors in a company called Royal, that is working on the other end of the generative AI case using blockchain in order to kind of bring everything together. I think that that's one example. The more crazy one is kind of like when you're seeing just deep fakes and so many, like it's the content is getting really, really, really good in terms of you not knowing what's real. Like, and could I even not even be a real person and I could be working out and just someone knows exactly who I am and all my mechanisms and how I move. And so, or even like from the presidential debates and all these things, like when someone's posting something online, by having it come through a blockchain, being verified on chain that this is a person. I think that's going to be one of the new authentication layers, that's really going to take off there as well too. And so that's going to be extremely important. But verification and knowing that this is original and this comes from the foundation. The amount of people that get hacked on Instagram and get use this and then posting and like we're living in a crazy world. It's exciting, but it's also insane. And so, but having that foundation and the validation from blockchain technologies, I think is going to make things really exciting. And you won't be able to it's like peanut butter and jelly.
Everybody loves peanut butter and jelly.
Exactly. You
Uh,
never knew that they would go together, but whoever did it,
Peanut butter and jelly and a side of potato chips is my favorite
exactly.
thing. The question is, what's the potato chip? Robotics? Maybe.
Absolutely.
All right, so this has been amazing. Let's open things up to some questions. And I think Jess Cartolucci, would you like to ask your question? Joyce, would you like to let Jess ask your question? Jess, are
And
you
thanks
there?
again for everybody taking the time today too.
Thank you, Chris. Um, let's see. Is Jess Cartolucci on the horn over here? Potentially not.
I don't
So,
think Jess is here anymore.
well, you know what? I can
Oh,
ask her a question. Because it's a good question. Okay,
Great.
so she asks, how do you think we can best help others understand the concept of digital ownership without focusing too heavily on the tech? I do think that's a hurdle many are still trying to get past. The right click save as conversation. Yeah, how do you help people understand the concept of digital ownership?
Well, I think the easiest way is through social media. I don't even think it has to even do with right click save. Like, you know, your followers, your people, your content, your posts, the network that you created can be taken from you at any moment. You don't own that. A corporation owns it. They're leasing you. You know, you're renting out your time on someone else's on someone else's platform. And that would, like, again, like what just happened with TikTok, where the entire app shuts down, and all of the value that you created through those years is immediately uh taken out of your hand because you have no control of it. Like, that is the definition between you owning your masters, you owning your music, you're owning your videos versus somebody else owning it. And that's the take rates, the YouTubes of the world, the Spotify's, the TikToks, the Instagrams, like these are all Web2 platforms that have corporate ownership that can easily take over your digital identity, and within a second, and all you can do is try and call a hotline. So I think that that is probably the easiest way for people to really understand the difference between true ownership versus um, uh, the idea of having your own identity online.
Yeah, that's pretty fundamental. Okay, so let's go to Martha Wertheim. Would you like to ask your question? And Joyce, do you see her in the audience? I think I just saw her. Huh. Martha, are you there?
I think Martha has also left the chat.
Oh, she's just literally, I was looking at her name
No.
okay, well, you know what? I will ask her question. So Martha Wertheim asks, can you comment on the fact that a lot of NFT platforms have pulled back from paying royalties on secondary sales?
Can I? Oh, why they pull back on secondary sales? You
Hmm.
know, unfortunately, one of the reasons that it happened, it was such a great use case, and I think it was one of the core drivers for the industry. There were platforms that, like Blur, that really focused on just capturing value through tokens, uh, and did not care anything. It was literally 100% financial, and the traders and the flippers were the people that were using that platform, which then basically competed with the marketplaces that were insuring royalties, which then ultimately killed, you know, like Jeff Bezos says, your take rate is my opportunity. And that's basically what happened. So, because of that, you know, in order for the companies in order to compete without them having to go broke and go out of business, they also had to limit the take rates and bring everything down. And there's still going to be ways in the future to for creators to capture value. It's just that because there were marketplaces that really did not even care about the creator and were 100% focused on the financial opportunities from buying and selling, that ended up changing the entire game. But I think that, with everything, there's always a smarter use case and a smarter situation. And I think that there will be there's still ways for creators to still capture value outside of the royalty situation that unfortunately went down.
Yeah, that was interesting because I mean it's the same thing in the art market. Like in the peak of the art market, where people were like, scrambling over each other to buy artworks by the hot artists. The artists had so much power, and then as
Exactly.
soon as like the market goes the other way, then
Yep.
everything is on the negotiating table. And I don't think people saw that coming with the smart contracts.
I know. Well,
But
that's how
okay,
art, if you can, history doesn't it doesn't repeat itself, but it does show, some signs that you can take from things too.
yeah, it helps to be in a position of power when you're at the negotiating table.
Fact.
That's for sure. So, okay, Philip Leviveld, I see you've got a great question here. And I want to thank you for tuning in on so many of these things. So,
Hey,
Phil,
Phil.
would you like to ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So just so you know, we had Udio present to the Television Academy a couple of weeks ago. So
Love
the
that.
whole industry is learning all about it. My question really goes back to fundamentals of blockchain. We live in like mashup and sample culture. Have you seen any blockchain solutions that allow for subsampling of content, or is it simply still all or nothing? Blockchain either protects the whole thing or it's unprotected.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the whole thing as of right now. I mean, and thank you for that question. But I do think that it's exciting because like with sampling, you always have to give credit to where it came from in order for things to even be produced live, and then from there they get the percentage of their royalties, and vice versa. And I think that you having the ability, like we, NFTs are actually a great example where people would kind of take derivatives of other projects and create their own versions of it, and leveraging some of their assets or some of their traits. But then now a lot of those projects would either get taken down because they did not comply with the original setup, or they didn't get permission, and so it is very much still all or nothing, where we've had to deal with that with Yuga many times, where people would try and take some of the Bored Ape assets and recreate them, and then try and get paid off of that, and it didn't really work that well when we went to court on their behalf. So I do think that you have to, which if with all things, you have to give credit and you have to cite the source, but which makes things even more exciting because with blockchain, all you need to do is just literally give credit, and you know exactly where the address goes to.
Okay, let's go to, I think we have time for one more question. Let's go to Luke Watson.
Hey,
Um,
Oh, geez, that was a long time ago. What I say?
oh, you know what? I can prompt you. I see it right here. You were asking about um, complexities with day-to-day blockchain usage as a byproduct of the self-custody decentralization ideology that permeate. I'll you know what? I'll let you ask it. Do you want to ask it? Hmm.
There
Maybe.
we go. Now I'm unmuted. I don't know what was
Okay,
going on
there you
there.
go.
Listen, it's not just the blockchain that's complex. Um, so yeah, basically I'm just asking, do you think that obviously the day-to-day usage of blockchain technology is very frustrating. It's still very complicated, and a normie will never ever stay engaged to figure this stuff out. Do you think that's a byproduct of the fact that self-custody and decentralization is an ideology of the space? And my theory is just that if centralization wasn't a dirty word, that maybe some of these usability issues would be more readily solved.
Hmm. Yeah, well, look, I think that's the challenge that we're trying to deal with. And I think that, making making the complex simple. And we've done that across so many different industries and so many different products and services. And I do think that like it requires a combination of knowing that, I when you say normies, like it you have like even like with like what Phantom Wallet's doing, like making it extremely simple for people to onboard and buy with cash or credit card, um, and to immediately get Solana or immediately, be able to transfer and do like that was like having consumer and application based products is going to be the next wave and what we're very excited about. And I like just having extremely user friendly interfaces and Solana. Like I mean, like Phantom is a perfect example of that, and which is why you see it jump to the charts on the App Store, which is amazing to see crypto in the App Store in the top 10. And because people know how to very easily do it, even like Stripe is another example of integrating stable coins and easy in very simple ways to buy and sell crypto. Another example that I'm excited about is Base. And being able to build a lot of developers are building on Base. A lot of projects are being built on Base to make it very simple to interact on chain. And I think that these are just technologies and that understand that in order for you to be a $1 billion business or even just transcend the industry, we're going to need very user friendly, hiding the wire applications. And even with us within A16Z crypto, and that also applies for just the broader A16Zs on the AI side, is like the application layer this is the time. And I'm excited for us to see the next wave of companies come out and really build products that everyday people are going to enjoy and have a delightful experience with.
Great note to end on. Well, thank you very much, Chris. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh no, this is my pleasure. I think I love the intersections of art and tech. I'm a huge, advocate of what the future of crypto is going to be, and how we can, put it in the hands of as many creatives as possible. I think that the from crypto punks getting in the museums to artists leveraging blockchain technology, you we're going to start to see interoperability on an everyday basis, and hopefully, if we do this right, nobody will ever know.
Yeah. Wow. The the greatest trick that crypto ever played on the world was pretending it didn't exist.
Exactly.
Oh, well, thanks very much for everybody for joining today. Next week, we are going to have some interesting guests who may continue down the pathway of the peanut butter and jelly of blockchain and AI, which is Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst of The Spawning. They also did The Call, the show that we heard from Hans Ulrich Oberst about earlier this month. So thank you again to Digital Original, who we are proud to have as our inaugural sponsors on Art World. Their team is doing some really incredible work in creating solutions to bridge the physical and digital art markets. And you can look forward to hearing more about them on Art World soon. Anyway, thanks very much, guys. Have a great
Andrew,
week.
thank you
And
for the time. You guys have an amazing platform. Everyone here had fantastic questions, and I love chatting with everyone on the side. And we're very excited to keep pushing this world forward. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter or you name it. And make sure you check out A16Z Crypto. Check out our podcast. Check out our content. You make sure you read, write, own, and make sure everyone stays up to speed in terms of what's happening, because this is going to be an exciting time, and we're extremely fired up for the future of the industry. And hopefully, we'll be able to have part 2 soon.
All right. Okay.